So many students go into engineering thinking they're just going to be taking physics 2 classes and calculus 3 classes. And while that's true for university life, it's not exactly the reality of day-to-day engineering at the end of the day. And we want to ask you, Mr. Moore, what you believe to be the typical day-to-day of a civil engineer in the 21st century.
Okay. The coolest thing about this is really the coolest thing about civil engineering is there is absolutely no typical day. Civil engineering is such a wide profession with so many different aspects of civil engineering that it's really hard to describe what any given person will be doing on any given day. Now, in my particular company, entry-level engineers, if they're assigned to the office, will pretty much be working on design projects. They'll spend a lot of time on the computer. Often they'll spend time in meetings. They'll spend time in, recap meetings, doing meeting minutes, and, spending a lot of time doing AutoCAD. But we also hire folks directly into the field. And if you're working in the field, you're going to be working on things like daily reports, quantity cost estimates, working with folk, basically doing progress meetings and, working on change orders, change requests, and stuff like that. If you were a structural engineer, I'm sure you'd be working in BIM most of the day as an entry-level engineer.
And what is BIM for the people that don't know what that is?
Sure. It's building information modeling. Took me a second there. Sorry, we do everything in AutoCAD. We work outside of the buildings.
Yeah.
We're civil engineers and landscape architects, so we work outside. So we do everything in Civil 3D, but we don't do a lot of work using Revit or any of the other kind of BIM programs, at least right now. So you spend a lot of time on the computer. Look, the whole thing that we're looking for as employers is for you to get really good at something. Because when you get really good at something, it builds confidence in you. It's repeatable, it's profitable, but at the same time, it gives you something that gives you a technical skill set that you can then turn around and share with your peers. You can be the expert in the office. That's really important to us. And I never, ever, ever, ever promote anybody in my company to being in management without them having at least one technical expertise. Because if not, then you're just a paper pusher. Then you're just that weird middle management and, in the office or whatever other movie you want to think of. You don't want to be that person. You want to be somebody that says, hey, I'm in management and I am managing projects that may be something I've never technically designed, but I have such great technical expertise in other things that I can do this. Because it's not always, the projects you work on, depending on your company. Look, you can be put on a project that's worth like $14 billion. And you're going to spend 12 years working on just that project. That's possible. Or you could work for a small land development firm, and you'd be working on 14 different land development projects in the same week. Mm-hmm. So, it really depends on what your level of comfort is. My typical day is, I honestly, sometimes I want to take an intern with me and have them have a GoPro on their head. My typical day goes from, meetings. I do a lot of marketing. I do a lot of client contact. I do a lot of politicking. I think being involved in advocacy is really important. I do a lot of legal and risk management personally. I read all our contracts. I communicate with our insurance agents and our attorneys on a daily basis about our contracts, how that's working. Some of the fun parts of my job, I grew up in the field, so I like sitting next to a hole in the ground. We do a lot of pipeline work and things. That's what I grew up doing. Fortunately, I've been exposed to be able to do some emergency work. Mm-hmm. And whenever we have an emergency project, some of my clients still call me personally. Even though we have 72 employees and everything else, I'm happy to be out there just standing next to it trying to figure out how to fix it. So I think that what you have to do as an entry-level engineer or getting ready to be an entry-level engineer is ask that question of your boss, saying, hey, for the foreseeable future, and the foreseeable future could be 3 months or 12 years, for the foreseeable future, what is my day going to be like? I've had employees come to me and say, hey, you're going to put me in the field right away? That's great. I didn't want to have to get dressed up every day. When I first started my job, I'm happy to wear jeans. I had no idea that was a career-making decision, but it made them comfortable because it helped them that transition from wearing shorts every day in school to wearing jeans in the field, then coming in the office and dressing like a professional. Just things that make you comfortable. And asking that question, no, if your boss or your potential boss can't answer that question, don't go work there. You need to be able to know what you're going to be expected of doing, because if you're someone who doesn't like sitting at a desk and you take a job that's sitting at a desk, that's a bad fit for you. If you're someone who doesn't like knowing, if you want to know what your schedule is going to be like, don't go work in the field. So what happens is every day the contractor starts at 7 and the contractor says they're going to end at 4, and inevitably at 3:59 they hit a gas main and you're going to be out in the field until 10 o'clock at night. And that only happens on the night where you made plans. The other 26 nights of the month where you didn't make plans, everything ended at 4 o'clock like normal. So you have to figure out how your personality and how your life and your lifestyle works. So it's absolutely okay to ask that question.
Fantastic. I mean, that is just a wealth of information that can't be recreated there. And it's super important to understand that, like you said, you have to go to the fit where you most feel comfortable and where you think you belong. Because a lot of civil engineering does end up out in the field. It does end up not being at a computer and not, typing away, staring at a screen for 24/7.
If whatever you do, whatever you design doesn't get built, you're not doing a very good job. So eventually it's going to get built, and eventually you're going to have to go there.
Exactly. Getting out in the field, getting the boots dirty.
You have a shiny hard hat, nobody trusts you.
The old shiny vest as well.
Yeah, you gotta throw that stuff in the dirt before you go out there day one. Just get it muddy.
So another thing that we want to briefly talk about here is COVID, because obviously it has affected everybody and everything in more ways than any of us could have even imagined when it started this spring of 2020. How are companies dealing with that? Just how are the civil engineering companies handling this crisis, and what can young engineers expect in such an unpredictable time, especially with all that's going on?
Sure. I think it was funny. We shut our offices down for all but essential personnel on March 16th. And my first email out to the company was, we think we'll probably be back in the office in 2 weeks or a month, and we'll let you know how that goes. So 9 months later, now we realize that, it's not a short-term thing. It's potentially a paradigm shift in the way things work. Every day, our first thought is about the health of our employees. We don't want anybody to be put in a position where they feel that their health is being compromised in order to do their job.
Absolutely.
The second thing that we do is want to make sure that they're in a position to do their job wherever they happen to be. Now, being a Floridian, we happen to be really good at being able to run away from our offices because of hurricanes. We've gone through, and our IT director had set up so many systems over Hurricane Michael and all the other ones that Dorian that potentially came here, and even Ida that just came through. We're so used to being able to be mobile as a result of our hurricane preparations that transitioning for COVID for us was actually almost overnight. It really wasn't a big deal. All of our systems are available online. Most companies did that and transitioned overnight. The ones that didn't, they quickly got on it and they quickly hired the right IT personnel in order to do that. Right now, our offices are available to people if they want to come in, and no one's required to come in unless there's something that requires them to be in person. And everything that we do is socially distanced. Our interns and our entry-level engineers typically have to come to the office more days than the senior engineers. And that's because they're still learning. So, obviously, if you have no idea what you're doing, it's not as easy to be able to communicate that over a Zoom meeting as it is to be able to do it in person. Now, again, that being said, we're completely socially distanced and all that other stuff. I think the biggest disadvantage for anybody, really comes down to not knowing what our culture is like. We used to hire an intern and I'd go have breakfast with them. And we'd hire a new hire and we'd either take them to lunch or go to happy hour together. And just to get to know them as people. Mm-hmm. And I think that being accessible as being a person and being able to express your individuality is the hardest thing about being able to come across in Zoom meetings. I try to do my best about saying everything that can come out of my mouth because I want people to know who I am, but not everybody's that comfortable. And, what we're really struggling in is, getting our folk, even as they come on board and get onboarded, how do you let them know who you are? So from our standpoint, what we're doing is we're doing more and more. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out to all our employees just to tell them, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the jobs we've won. Here's an employee highlight. Here's what's unique about this one employee. Here's some cool things that are going on. So, on a weekly basis to get a newsletter. But that really falls flat. And I think it takes leadership. And I think we actually developed a studio in our office. It's about 200 feet from here, where I can deliver pre-recorded or live speeches so that we can go through and make sure that everyone understands and they can hear from my own mouth what's going on. I typically send, 5 or 10 staff all emails outlining policies and procedures and things that are going on every year. I probably sent 25 alone this year relating to COVID because we're so concerned about managing people's, their health. But I'm also super concerned about people's mental health because particularly if you're by yourself, if you're alone, or if even worse, you're alone but in a caretaker role where you're the only one working, but you're in a caretaker role, whether it be an elderly person, a sickly person, or a child, there's a lot of stress that goes on with that. And so we try to do our best about getting out the message about the various different mental health hotlines and other treatments that are available out there, just to make sure people don't feel alone. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, we try to do things that just involve company fun stuff. We have, virtual happy hours, virtual live games during the week. We try to do that sort of thing so people can keep connecting. Yeah, cheers. But, what we try to do is we try to make sure people do. And actually, we're going to end this year. We had to cancel our holiday party, but we're going to have a virtual award show. And by doing that, we're going to try to make sure everybody gets highlighted and make sure what a great year we've had. It's actually been a very good year for the company. It's just been a really hard year for all of us from a mental health standpoint.
Absolutely.
And, it's super interesting. A lot of people talk about, everybody's working at home, so they're more efficient. And, nobody's ever going to come back to the office. And I'm like, well, that's a total lie that people are more efficient working from home. What it is that people have more time. So if it used to take you 8 hours to get 6 hours worth of work done, now it could take you potentially 10 hours because think about the fact you might have to drive to the office. You had an hour commute, or you have somebody who always talked to you at the coffee pot, or, just, all the little things, you took an hour and a half lunch or whatever it was. Now you avoid all that stuff, but man, your dog's in the background barking, your mom's calling you, you got your kid hanging off your leg, you get all those other things. So now it takes 10 hours to get that 6 hours worth of work done or, whatever, but you have more time to do it because you aren't commuting. You aren't doing these other things. And so I think offices will exist in the future, but I think they're going to be totally rebuilt. I think we're always going to keep in mind in the future social distancing, public health concerns. There will be, there have been so many inventions because of health concerns in the history of mankind that it's super important to understand that this is by far not the first time this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I hope it's the only time in my lifetime and hopefully my daughter's lifetime that this is going to happen again. But, our job is to protect the public. And guess what, man? I want to make sure that the projects we're designing keep going. The projects we're designing keep getting built. Everything that we're doing relates to public health, safety, and well-being. So if we have to do it from home, we have to do it from the office, we have to do it from a Starbucks, we have to do it from sitting in our parking lots, we're going to keep working.
Going to get it done.
Yeah, I just
always get it done.
I wanted to follow up. So for Chenmore and Associates, when do you expect to be back in the office? Would it be until a vaccine is out in public, or just, I guess, like when the risk is lower than it is right now?
So, obviously, a couple of months ago or a month ago, I can't even remember now, the numbers were really low and it looked really sexy to have everybody come back to the office. We chose not to do that for a couple of reasons. The most prevalent one for us actually related to a lot of the school districts that we're in are still closed. And as a result, we have a lot of parents that have to be home with their kids anyway. So we said, look, it's really irresponsible of us to tell the parents they have to come to the office when their kids can't go to school. And they've been managing this well this long. Let's continue moving it forward. So currently we've said that we're not going to make any decisions about anything until January 2021. In a lot of ways, we're going to continue to lean on a lot of what obviously the CDC, the local health agencies say, but really for us, it's going to depend a lot on what the school districts do, because it's not just us; it's our clients. If people are going to school and their kids are getting sick, then it's going to totally change the way in which people are able to interact. Look, even if you're working from home, if you have to go somewhere, you have to go somewhere. It's not an excuse to not leave the house. If you have a particular health concern, obviously we'll handle that. But if you're having, normal health situation and, you just happen to have been working from home 6 months in a row and you have to go to a presentation, you have to go to a presentation. It's weird. Some of our clients switch to in-person meetings. Some of our clients switch to in-person presentations. I sense that's going to switch back. I think things are gonna fall back. And I'm glad we didn't overreact and have all of our people come back right away. I've heard of some companies have totally foregone their leases. That doesn't work. Engineering is a super collaborative business. And if anybody out there thinks that working at home is going to be a great way in order to learn how to be a civil engineer, you're absolutely wrong. You need to be around people who know what they're doing. You need to be around people. And by the way, you can't build a project from home either. So guess what? The construction crews are going to be out there anyway. So no matter what happens, there's always going to be a face-to-face level of interaction in civil engineering. Now, can we do it safer? Can we do it smarter? Can we use technology to minimize all the things we can? 100%. But I think we won't be making any decisions about what we're doing as a company until we really understand what the school districts are going to do and any other guidance that we get from the CDC or the local health agencies.
Okay. Yeah. And then I guess my last question would be, I guess you answered in your response there, but do you think this hybrid, virtual office and then eventually an in-person office experience again is going to be the new norm for, I guess, the future of just firms like yours?
I think no matter what. So the really funny part is, so I'm from here, I can see my corporate conference room. And I've had this camera sitting on top of this really fancy 70-inch TV for 4 years, right? And it never quite worked right. So it was linking all of our offices together. It never quite worked right. And because we had the ability to drive and go see each other in person, we never pursued the desire to make sure the technology worked perfectly. COVID turned that on its head. We we absolutely have to make sure that every one of our people has a camera on their computer. Every one of our people has the ability to connect like this. Every one of our people. Because it was always just we'll get to it eventually. And COVID made it a priority. So virtual meetings will 100% be an acceptable form of communication in some level moving forward. It's got past the whole novelty standpoint. It's got past all of that. But I'll also tell you, there's no way that you can meet somebody or forge a relationship over a computer. You need to be able to sit down there, look them in the eye, have a conversation with them, and talk to him or her about their life, their family, their background, their kids, their aspirations, their life goals. There's something very particular about knowing how somebody likes their steak cooked and, what they like to drink at the bar or whether or not they like to go skiing or surfing on the weekend. There's something about that level of personal interaction that is fundamental in business, and it's fundamental in getting the civil engineering process moving. Public information is huge. Public information used to be getting everybody together, asking everybody to go to a town hall meeting and telling them that you're going to run this highway down the middle of their, neighborhood. Now, really and truly, I think this has totally transformed the way in which public information campaigns are going to work. Online surveys, video meetings, that sort of thing, really allow people to participate, because it also used to be you only heard from the people who had the time to participate. Mm-hmm. Now you have the ability to hear from everybody, and it doesn't skew the answer one direction or another. It really gives us an opportunity to do things. So That was a really long answer to a short question. I apologize. But I think it's really important to note that life gave us lemons when they gave us COVID. We're trying to make lemonade and understand how, we can leverage technology in the future, and it will definitely supplant certain things. But I really and truly always want to sit around and be able to look at somebody in the eye and do something. We're trying to do something collaborative.